IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and we have a lot to talk about today. It is Wednesday, and you guys know what that means. It is buy, sell, hold day for us here, but we're going to jump to that in a little bit because first, Notre Dame picked up another offensive lineman recruit for the 2026 class yesterday, and that is where we're going to begin today's show. So yesterday, actually, I believe it was when we were going live with our Tuesday show, the news broke that 2026 offensive tackle Charlie Thom was going to commit to the University of Notre Dame. So he is from Avon, Connecticut. He's a 6'6", 270-pound offensive tackle, plays at Avon Old Farms High School. He's actually, I believe, a fifth-year player. I read that in your breakdown.
And this will be his first year at Avon Old Farms. He played high school, his 4 years of high school at Darien High School in Connecticut. So he's a Connecticut native, but not all high schools offer post-grad type situations. It's kind of like, Trev, remember back in the day when kids would go to like Fork Union Military Academy or Hargrave Military Academy for sort of that extra year? Back then, a lot of times it was for either A, you were being under-recruited, or B, for academics.
Okay.
This is A, he was under-recruited coming out of high school. He put on a bunch of weight and just went from it being a tight end to a Division I offensive lineman. So it was a smart decision by him, and it worked out because he's probably going to an Ivy League school if he goes right out of high school. Now he's getting offered by Notre Dame, Penn State, Boston College, Nebraska, a lot of schools like that. But yeah, he was originally part of the 2025 class nationally, and then reclassified to 26 because of the prep school year.
Well, good deal. Well, you guys know how we get down here. We are going to talk about backstory, where Brian's going to fill us in about what went into the recruitment of Charlie Thom. We're going to get into class impact. And unfortunately, our guy Vince isn't here with us today. Sounds like he's driving back from Hillsdale, but we are going to break down some film. He's going to miss out on his favorite part. You snooze, you lose. Sorry, Vince. Sorry, buddy. But we're going to break down some film, and then we're going to talk about what's next. But, of course, after that, we are going to dive into buy, sell, hold. But, Brian, what all went into the recruitment of Charlie Thom?
Well, this is an interesting one, Trevor, because he wasn't really on the radar not that long ago, for a lot of the reasons that I talked about. He was a kid that, we're still, as of this morning, ESPN and Rivals have still yet to even grade him. He's listed as a prospect, and that's it. No grade, not a 1-star, not a 2-star, not a 3-star. He's just graded. And then up until, as of a week ago, the only site that had actually graded him at all was On3. So props to On3 for that one. But it was a situation where he was a young man that going into the winter didn't really have that impressive of an offer list. And then, people started kind of looking at his film, and he got a lot bigger as a senior. He was, you saw the junior film, 2023 junior film. He was closer to Preston Frizzell than he was what he is now, and he was bigger than Preston Frizzell, but he wasn't that much bigger than Preston Frizzell. Then he puts on a pretty decent amount of weight as a senior, not bad weight, just kind of physically got bigger, got up to 250, 260, and he's still playing tight end, caught 30 passes for 400 yards as a 6'6", probably 240, 250 plus guy. So he kind of starts to get, a little bit more recruiting attention. And then I don't know what went into this. I've yet to talk to Charlie about this, but he basically makes the decision to go to Avon Old Farms instead of, picking one of the schools that, that we're looking at him. So he goes into this spring and he starts going to camps and starts going to workouts. And all of a sudden he gets offered by Army in February. He gets offered actually BC. No, that's just a school visit, not even offers. He gets offered by the first big offer he got that I can see, according to Rivals. He got offered by Syracuse in May. Then UConn offered him, then JMU, Buffalo, Liberty, some Ivy League schools, and then all of a sudden it starts picking up. He gets offered by Wake Forest in May. He gets offered by Nebraska in the middle of May, Virginia Tech in the middle of May. A couple days later, it's Michigan State, then Stanford. Then he gets Penn State starts looking at him. Penn State offered him during his official visit on the 13th, and so you could see him in a month. Just blows up as a recruit. Well, he had gone to a couple prospect camps and worked out. And that ultimately, my understanding, is what led to him getting offered by Notre Dame. He also went to one of the Notre Dame camps this June, worked out in front of the staff, looked really good. They were impressed, and so they decided to offer him. this is one of those deals, Trev, where if Notre Dame offered Charlie Thom, it was gonna be Notre Dame. And I was actually reading an intel piece. Buddy had sent me something that because we were kind of joking about how Notre Dame is just smashing Penn State in recruiting, and he was like, "Could you imagine if this happened?" And he sends me this intel thing that somebody, I don't know if it's 247 or On 3, that Penn State had done. I think it was On 3, Penn State side had done, where they were talking about how, Penn State was in a great position for him, and, they really liked him, and he really liked Penn State. He was doing an official visit. They did a great job of, like, throwing out the offer, et cetera, et cetera. But that way, Charlie had told, apparently, again, this is me saying what someone else is reporting, so I want to give due respect to them. This isn't my intel. This is something that they said. Apparently, he told the Penn State staff that if Notre Dame offers him, he's going to Notre Dame. So their thought was, like, well, if we miss on Grayson McHugh, we'll be good because we can go get Charlie Thom and, still have him, add him to the class with Kevin Brown. Well, then Notre Dame Notre Dame offers him Monday night. There's some reasons why they offered him. I'll get into those. This is one of those post-signing day backstory things that I'm going to share. But some things happened, and it led to Notre Dame offering him a scholarship. Well, Grayson McHugh commits the same day. And so now you're like, okay, well, now you've got Grayson McHugh. You've offered Charlie Thom. He's a guy that Joe Rudolph wanted to take. There were some conversations among the staff, and they decided, okay, let's offer him as well. He immediately sets up an official visit, and, the minute they offered him, Trev, it was pretty much, when's he going to commit, not if he's going to commit. And so, what was really cool, one of the coolest parts about this whole thing, because we all dream of as kids, like, man, I hope that someday I'm a Notre Dame fan that can maybe get offered a scholarship by Notre Dame. Like we think of, like, you probably have some pictures of when you were a little kid going to Notre Dame games with your dad and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
On his commitment thing, if you scroll to the next photo, it's him as a little kid at a Notre Dame game rocking Notre Dame gear.
That's awesome.
Like, this is a kid that grew up as a Notre Dame fan. Like, this was kind of like, he's like Rudy with, like, more size and talent. I mean, as an insult, I mean, Rudy was little and it was amazing what he did. This is a 6'6", 270-pound kid. And I just think that part of it's just really cool. I don't know what kind of a player he's going to be. I just think it's awesome that a kid that just grew up dreaming of wanting to play at a place like Notre Dame gets that job. And honestly, I think that this is my read of the situation. This is not anything I've been told. I think that factored into why Notre Dame was willing to bring him in as a sixth offensive lineman. Because this is a young man that is, if he never plays a meaningful down of football in his Notre Dame career, is going to be happy that he was on the football team at Notre Dame and he's going to get a degree from Notre Dame. And if he ends up being a really good player, that's even better. But he's not going to, in my opinion, going to be a rock the boat, complaining, always have to be convincing him to not transfer and all those type of things. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is the kind of kid that just loves being at Notre Dame and is like a Pat Coogan type, where even if he's not starting, he's still a leader of your team as a veteran. That's kind of what comes across to me with some of the things I've heard about this young man. So it just makes the story even cooler, because it's like, he's living out the dream that a lot of us had, which is that played football when we were young, is, man, how cool would it be to be recruited by and get offered by Notre Dame, and Charlie Thom's getting an opportunity to live out that dream. And I just think that's really cool.
No, that's awesome. I remember the days of going back and watching games with my dad when I was young. Definitely a dream. Didn't have the skill nor the money to get into Notre Dame, so here we are. But that is okay. I still love what I do now. Yeah. I know you touched on it a little bit, but let's dive into class impact here, Bryan. Notre Dame already had 5 offensive linemen committed. Started out with a goal of at least 4. That next guy came along. That was Grayson McHugh. You take him as your 5. So what does Charlie Thom have as far as an impact value in this class, being the 6th offensive lineman?
Well, I mean, look, you didn't – starting this process, there was no desire to have 6 offensive linemen from everything I've been told. And at no point in time was I ever told, hey, this is where they're going to go with it. And I think this is a bit of a unique situation because of him being a late bloomer and the uniqueness of his skill set, meaning like they wouldn't have continued recruiting like Claude and Puma or anyone else if if he doesn't pick the class. I really think a lot of this has to do with just the fact that his unique situation. And so when I look at the impact of the class, I think that's why you got the 6, is because of the uniqueness of him. Now, having said that, beyond the 6 part and just looking at the benefits of a makeup of the class, Trev, there was a need, in my opinion, you needed at least one true tackle in this class. And I didn't love the fact that you had a 5-man class. We talked about this, where 4 of them primarily project inside. If the class above you can't stay on the edge, if there's some injuries there, some things along those lines, and all of a sudden you're in a tackle depth problem. And Notre Dame's kind of in that situation now where, you're an injury away from a true freshman in the spring, going out and having to be in your 2 deep. And we saw what happened last year with Notre Dame. And so they're in a position where I think what this does is the 3-man class of Will Black, Matty Augustine, and Owen Strebig, combined with now a 2-man class of Grayson McHugh and now Charlie Thom. You're a little healthier tackle situation moving forward. And while 6 is not ideal, you're looking at multiple kids in this class being red shirts, which means they're looking to replace the rising junior class, not Emil. Like, I've seen people say, well, they decided to take 6 because they're, concerned that Emil Wagner and Billy Schrouth and Jagasol and Craig could all go pro or something like that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not bringing in Charlie Thom to help you in 2026 if all those guys go pro. But what he does do is, if for some reason that happens, and I think we would all agree that wouldn't be great for Notre Dame's 2026 team, but that likely means the 2025 team is amazing.
Yeah.
If all 4 of those guys are going pro. But what it does is now your depth is better in 2026. But a lot of these guys are going to be redshirt players. I mean, I think look, all of them, I think I'd like to have them redshirt because I'd like to have them reshape their bodies and have extra years of eligibility. But I got to think Grayson McHugh's a redshirt. I got to think Charlie Thom's a redshirt. I think Sullivan Garvin's probably redshirt. Maybe Gregory Patrick's definitely a red shirt. Maybe Ben Nichols and Tyler Merrill could play as freshmen because they're so big and strong. But I'd like to red shirt all of them. So you're not bringing these guys in to replace guys that are going pro in 2026, but they do help you with your bottom line numbers. So you're not running into situations where, maybe they don't need to play, but if there's some injuries, I'd rather have Ben Nichols than not have them. I'd rather have, Grayson McHugh than not have them. And that's where I think he helps, is he gets you that second tackle in the class. And I think that's, take the 6 aside, that was a positive, just a true class impact positive.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it. You stated it a lot on this show about how ideally Notre Dame has multiple tackles within a class because of their versatility once they do finally get on campus. So I agree. Bryan, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to dive into some film on old Charlie Thom.
Sorry, we can do that. That sounds like fun. Let me pull up old Charlie's film. We'll watch his senior film because that's the film where he was obviously bigger. Yeah. He had filled out. And so we'll watch that part of it as soon as we get through this commercial. But he's an interesting player, Trev, because all the film we're going to see is of him playing tight end. And not tight end like the way that Joe Rudolph played tight end for Notre Dame in 2021, where he was basically an offensive lineman that they threw a number 45 jersey on to just get him in there as an extra blocker.
Yeah,
he had over 30 catches for over 400 yards last season. His high school coach, I read in an update that his high school coach said he had over 1,000 career high school yards. So he's a not your typical tight end, and part of that is because he did blow up so much here in his last year. But you'll see him now. He is number 8. I watched, he'll line up in a position like this a lot in a wing, but he does a lot in the slot. He does a lot outside. I saw a route where he ran a comeback route as an ISO backside tight end, or, kind of lined up as a receiver. You see him going out on a screen. Is this like, oh my God, this kid could play tight end? And no, he cannot. But are you like, dude, this is a pretty athletic tackle? Yeah, you are. And that's what kind of makes this kid unique, Trev, is the first thing, and I'll let you kind of break it all down. But first thing you see is that's a big, long kid that moves pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched his film a little bit yesterday. I watched it again a little bit today, and he's somebody that when I watch him on film, you can tell that he's going to project to be an offensive lineman at some point. You look at how he's built together. He has a really good frame, but he is athletic. Brian, to your point, he's not going to go to Notre Dame and become a tight end. He's not going to be,
Right.
giving James Flanagan a run for his money for,
If,
spot in the
if there's
rotation.
depth issues at tight end, they're not like, hey man,
Right.
we
Right.
we could move him there as a blocker. Like
Yeah.
I could see that, but like I said, it'd be more of that Joe Alt role from 2 years ago than it would
Mhm.
be, or from 2021 than it would be, him being a permanent tight end.
Yeah.
That's not going to be happening.
For sure. But you can see some of the tools. You can see the athleticism. He has good feet. Right there, he's pulling out, he's lead blocking on a run play, deletes the kid into the end zone. And you see some of the tools that I believe some of the coaching staff is going to see. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. He has yet to take a snap in high school as a tackle. Correct. This is
Correct. I have not seen him play offensive tackle in high
okay.
school. It's
Okay.
it's it's all. And look, go ahead, keep going, Trav. Finish your
Yeah,
point.
and you see plays where he's not necessarily attached to the line of scrimmage, but he's aligned more as like the H back, but they will pull him out and use him as a lead blocker. You go back and think about what some of the things Notre Dame does schematically, where they'll pin and pull some of their tackles, they'll move out some of their tackles on counter plays. He fits schematically what Notre Dame would want to do with some of their tackles this season, down the road. Now it's just about seeing him do it as an actual offensive tackle in high school. But the tools are there. Good feet, not tight hipped. Said a lot of the similar things about Grayson McHugh because of his background playing a little bit of tight end as well. An athletic kid, somebody that is going to be somewhat of a project when he gets on campus. But you like the baseline of where he's going to be starting from.
Yeah, and like I like I like the size, I like the athleticism. There's a lot of potential there. There's some of the question marks of hey, why does he ranked as a 3-star recruit? Is it just because you've never seen him play tackle? No, not really, because there's a lot of tight ends you can see play tackle, but you see him in space. You got to look at that not like a tight end, but you look at that like an offensive lineman, and you see that the kid moves really well. This is pretty good athleticism here. He's waiting on the ball. You see he's got pretty nimble feet, but what my concern is, it's not just about learning to play tackle. He's got to learn to play with the physicality that you need from an offensive lineman on a more consistent basis. This is against, I believe, that clip right there was against Matty Augustine's high school, I believe. But he will get after it at times, and then like that's a really good clip. Other times it's just kind of like he's a body blocker, and you don't see the same level of physicality that I want to see. Like there, it's just he's kind of placing on the guy, and then he's just way bigger than that kid. So there's a lot of things you have to learn about striking, about stepping and with power, about using his hands with force, about really driving his feet. So there's a lot of technical things that he's going to have to work on. And but like you said, the tools are there. This is not a kid you're expecting to come in and if there's an injury to your starting left tackle, he becomes a your immediate starter like Anthony Knapp or like a
Yeah.
Blake Fisher or Joe Walt. But this is a kid that you hope in time can be a pretty good player. Like this is pretty decent, but athletically, but got to work on the pad level. Like Drake Bowen, for example, is going to rock him right here. Just absolutely rock him because he doesn't understand. He's just so much bigger and more talented than the guys he's playing against. He doesn't really need to be that way. So all those things need to get worked on, and that's a big reason why he's a 3-star. But how many offensive tackles could go catch a wheel route with his hands like this, and and run over a kid and do things like that? So there's a lot of those things, Trev, that you look at and you say, hey, this kid's got legit tools. He's just a long way away from being able to show those tools on a consistent basis. But you can't deny the tools, and that's what Notre Dame saw. And if he was the only tackle that they got in this class, I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about that. But as sort of that second tackle in the class with Grayson McHugh, man, I dig it, especially when you consider the backstory of this is a kid who's going to come in and be completely bought in to what you're trying to do at Notre Dame. And that can't be dismissed as an important factor of whether or not it's going to work. Because the fear of with having 6 guys in the class is Yeah, we'll keep them all here. Well, when your sixth guy is a kid like this,
Yeah.
it's going to help. It certainly helps.
I'm sure I speak for you in saying this as well, but I'm excited to see his film this upcoming season when he does start to take some snaps as a tackle to truly see what kind of foundation he's going to have. Because athletically, looks like he projects, but you guys know me, I'm a got to see it guy, and I can't wait to watch him actually be a tackle.
Well, you definitely have to see it. I mean, there's no question about it. You definitely have to see it. But you'd rather see a kid that has the potential. You want to see the athleticism do all. It's kind of like I've said, yeah, look, I don't need to see a kid actually play receiver to have an idea of whether I can turn this kid into receiver.
Sure.
I need to see him catch the ball. I need to see how his explosiveness, to see his change of direction. What kind of hip movement does he have? I mean, like honestly, you could watch a 6'3", 195-pound kid play basketball and be like, dude, I think I could turn him into a wide receiver. Because I could see all the athleticism and the athletic tools. Now, will he pick up on the nuances of the position? That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But you're taking a chance on a kid like this because he is what we, it's the epitome of a boomer bust prospect. If he, this is the kind of kid who could come in and never play meaningful down of football at Notre Dame. And this is the kind of kid that you're like, how did this kid grow into a 2-3 year starter at Notre Dame? You never know. There's that huge gap. But because the upside's there, I'm okay taking a chance on it because, listen, not everybody pans out. I mean, there's going to be top 100 guys that they get on the offensive line that don't pan out. And so you don't say, well, you go back and look and the kid never panned out, so you shouldn't have taken him. Well, you're going to say that about every like 5-star kid that they get or top 100 kid that they get who doesn't pan out? No, it's you're making a projection based on his potential and upside, and you coach him up and see what happens. And that's what Notre Dame did with Grayson McHugh, and that's what they're doing with Charlie Thom. Now the difference is, I think Grayson McHugh has more just natural God-given ability, and we've already seen Grayson make the move to offensive line. Grayson's bigger, more athletic, more powerful, all those kind of things, but he's still a projection for the offensive line, and that's what I want to see. So, I'm good to pick up here's my thing. As long as all the other offensive linemen in the class are okay with it, then you know what? I'm okay with it. That's the only potential concern for taking a kid like him. Now, what's next? Obviously, Notre Dame is not going to be adding a 7th offensive lineman to the class. Here's an interesting thing, too. Somebody actually asked me this the other day. They said, if Grayson is this the kind of kid in an 85 scholarship era? Is this the kind of kid that is a preferred walk-on? And my answer is maybe, but I don't know if Notre Dame really wanted Charlie Thom in the 85 scholarship era. The chances of them getting him to turn down scholarships from Penn State, Boston College, Nebraska, and Syracuse, Virginia Tech to go pay $70,000 a year to go to Notre Dame. I don't know that would have been a good option. I mean, we've seen it happen before. Luke Talich did that a couple of years ago. I mean, he had legit offers from Utah and Washington State, but that'd have been a tough one because he did have a good relationship with Phil Troutwine at Penn State, who did a nice job recruiting him from what I've been told. And now it's a situation where Notre Dame steps in and gets it done. What's next for Notre Dame in the 2024 class or 26 class is nothing. They're done. It's kind of now time to put the full attention on keeping this class together, but the attention now goes on, the 2027 class. So we have just had all types of weather issues this week. So Trevor's power's out, so he's out for now. So I'm gonna keep rolling right now with this. But that's kind of where they're at. It's just look now. It's let's set your board for 2027. Let's see who your top guys are in 2027. Cameron Wagner's going to be one. Hopefully Kennedy Brown will be one down in Texas. So hopefully they have an idea of who their top guys are, and it's time to go after them and see if you can get them into class. So that's where they're at. As far as what's next in the class as a whole, the next player that has a commitment date set that I'm aware of. So I'm trying to think of the positions: running back, wide receiver. They're done at running back, wide receiver, tight end, D line, secondary. The next player with a known commitment date is Caden Finley on July 4th. Then you'll have Devin Fitzgerald on July 5th. You may have somebody go within that next day or so. July 11th, Nick Reddish is going to make his decision known between Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. Devin Fitzgerald's between Clemson, Notre Dame, and Stanford. Caden Finley, it's basically Notre Dame and Texas. And then Braden Robinson is on the July 20th. We'll see if he sticks to that. But it'll be Notre Dame, Miami, Arizona. And then Evan Jacobson's still out there, and Ian Premer is still out there. I don't believe either one of them have dates set for when they're going to make their decision. So we're going to see. But the board is really small. I think there's, 2 tight ends. You've got Elijah Golden doesn't have a date set yet. So you have him at D tackle. You've got Nick Reddish, and you've got the 3 receivers. So there's 7 guys left on the board. I think Notre Dame would most likely take all of them if they wanted to come. And, if you want to get my thoughts on how I feel about those guys, you can go check the board, my latest intel piece I put up. I'm thinking about doing something later this week after I get a little bit more intel of just sort of like my feeling where I think things are leaning and have that. So, but obviously Charlie Thom is a really nice pickup for Notre Dame, and yet another player, 21st player to commit to Notre Dame in this class. It's been a wild run, and you think about the ups and downs of where we've been as a fan base, kind of reacting to who they're getting or when they're not getting guys and things like that. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. So that's going to do it for the Charlie Thom breakdown. We are going to dive into Buy Sell Hold next. But before we do, folks, do me a favor. You see that like button down there? It would really help us if you could do that. But here's another thing I'm going to ask you guys to do. And even if you don't necessarily listen to the podcast, so in the description box below, you will see, and if you are a podcast listener, definitely do this for us. We'd greatly appreciate it. But you'll see a link to our podcast platform. And we have one on, obviously Apple, whether you're listening on Google, whether you're listening on Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast. What you can do to help us, and this is free, all it costs you is time, is go to the podcast platform or any podcast platform. And if you really want to help us out, go to all the podcast platforms where they have Irish Breakdown and give us a 5-star review. Give us a 5-star rating and a review. Let people know why you like our show, why you listen to our show. It definitely helps us out a ton and really helps us to kind of get ourselves in front of more and more audience, just that algorithm, whatever it means and however they do it, the like button and the 5-star reviews on the podcast platforms tells the algorithm, say, promote this show more. And we would greatly appreciate that. So, every now and then I like to remind you guys of ways that you can help us. Obviously, being a member of the Irish Breakdown Premium Board is a great way to help us financially. Boards at irishbreakdown.com. We always appreciate super chats, but there's a lot of things you guys can do to help us that just require your time. Listening to the show, watching the show, but then also making sure you're hitting the like button on all our shows, and then giving us that 5-star review on the podcast platform is something that we really, really, really appreciate and helps us a bunch. And then, of course, tell all your friends and family that are Notre Dame fans about what we're doing at Irish Breakdown. And you can tell them to sign up at boards at irishbreakdown.com.